Deontological ethics, or some would call it duty ethics, is the second of the three moral theories that Desjardins gives you in his book, Introduction to Business Ethics. It is also a popular vision of ethics practiced by many Christians. Although, as you're going to see, both Desjardins and the Roman Catholic Church prefer virtue ethics. But you could be a Roman Catholic and practice deontology and still be in good standing with the Church. It's just that the Church does not think that this is the best way to go about ethics. So what is deontological ethics? What is duty ethics? Well, it was pioneered by Immanuel Kant, one of the giants in philosophy. If you major in philosophy, you will read his work. And he lived in what is now Kaliningrad in Russia. Back then it was Königsberg, Prussia, a major Baltic city, a major Hanseatic city. And he lived there all of his life. He never left the city, between 1724 to 1804. And this towering intellect argued that moral acts are either right or wrong on principle. In other words, there are acts that are intrinsically always right or always wrong on principle, and that we have a duty to do good no matter the circumstance. So you can see why this is attractive. Unlike the utilitarian who would say that the consequence is the best way of determining the goodness or badness of an act, someone who is a deontologist would say that no, moral acts are intrinsically wrong. If the motive is wrong, if the means are wrong, if the ends are wrong, then it's immoral. And therefore we have a duty, no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, no matter how we feel, no matter the opposition outside of us, that we cannot practice a bad moral act, and we have a duty to do good moral acts. Now, here comes the question: how, according to Kant, does one get at a moral act? Well, Immanuel Kant was not entirely sure about the existence of God. If you look at his gravesite in the cathedral at Königsberg, half of it is inside the church and half of it is outside the church. And that was the Lutheran Church's way of talking about Kant's agnosticism. He did not think that we could get at what he called the noumenal. In other words, Kant doubted whether or not human beings could get at things that are eternal. We only know eternal truths through our perceptions. They're always colored by our perceptions. They're always shaped by how we perceive things. We can't get at the eternal in and of itself. So how did Kant reason how we could get at eternal moral truths if we can't get to the essence of things purely? He said this way, through the categorical imperative. Categorical means something that is held without exception. So in this case, a moral principle held without exception. And it's an imperative because we always have a duty to perform it, no matter what. And Kant said that if we cannot get at eternal moral truths purely, such as natural law, such as the revealed truths of God, well, basically Immanuel Kant said that each of us must act only in those ways we reason to be a universal law. So each and every one of us will reason that it's wrong to murder, that it's wrong to steal, that it's wrong to lie. And that will become a universal principle. So we have this emergent consensus through our reason, and we agree that not murdering, not stealing, not lying, things like that, that will become a universal law. So we do not lie because if we do lie, then communication becomes unreliable, we cannot trust each other, society breaks down. We cannot steal because if we're not secure in our property, then our ability to do commerce breaks down. Our ability to interact breaks down. The same thing with murder. So those are small examples of this reasoning process, whereby human beings, according to Kant, can arrive reliably at principles that can be made universal. Made universal, and so we achieve this categorical imperative. And that leads to a criticism of Kant. Can we? Sure, human beings, if we're good people, if we belong to communities of character, sure, we can arrive at these universal laws. And when we go to virtue ethics next, you'll see that process involved. But what virtue ethics has, which Kant does not have, is a sure trust in eternal sources of moral law. So virtue ethics relies upon God's revelation in the Ten Commandments, in the Beatitudes. Virtue ethics relies upon a confidence in the human ability to attain the natural law, to reason our way toward those moral principles over and over again, not lying, not stealing, that no matter the time or the place where we live, or when in history we live, we can, assuming that we're reasoning straight, we can arrive at those moral principles through reason. So we have a confidence in getting at eternal moral truths that a Kantian may not have, that a deontologist may not have. And that takes us to virtue ethics.